Greetings, YouTube. I have spoken before on my channel about my position when it comes to hitting children. There is not now, nor has there ever been, a reason to hit a child. Not in the entire history of our species, some 200,000 plus years. And in fact, one of the only videos, I think it may be the only video on my channel, that I had to turn comments off was about not hitting children. There seems to be a whole lot of people out there that really want to justify hitting kids. Very likely because they themselves were hit as children. And of course, they turned out just fine. If you're justifying hitting children, you are not just fine. Go talk to a therapist. There are better processes you can use for dealing with your child. But I just read something that was intriguing, and I'd never really thought about it before. Even though I have been advocating for the concept of not hitting kids for decades, my entire life, as pretty much as soon as I could articulate it, and as soon as I was out of the shadow of the person that would hit me at the drop of a hat. And that is if a parent doesn't ever hit their kids, if they raise them in an environment where discipline is not violence, where the parent understands that if a kid has the capacity for reason, you use reason. And if the kid doesn't have the capacity for reason, then hitting them isn't going to help, because they're not going to understand the connection between the violent act and their behavior, because they lack reason. But if a child is raised in an environment where they don't get hit, they're not afraid of their parents. And that hit me really hard. They aren't afraid of their parents. No, I'm not afraid of my parents either, but I'm 59. And it took me a really long time to get there. For a long time, I defined myself as not my father. I'm not him. I'm not him. And it took me a long time to realize who I was. And one of the biggest improvements in that process has been serotonin. I get mine in a little bottle. They're purple. I quite like the color. And I think many people are quite lucky because they get their serotonin in their brain. It does what it's supposed to do. Mine doesn't. But also, my creative expression, first in sketching, and then in the actual physical manufacture of items. I build things as a hobby. I make stuff. Sometimes it's simple utilitarian items. Just recently, for Halloween of October 2023, my wife asked me to make an armature for her so that she could put a scarecrow in the yard. Me being me, I made it out of steel, but I made it for her. And in fact, a friend of hers thought it was so cool, she asked for one, so I made it for her. She also asked for a razor wing, which is a type of throwing weapon I designed recently, so I made one for her. And the act of making something, the act of the planning and the execution and the skill that it takes to turn bits and pieces of scrap steel into something that I find aesthetically pleasing, something that I find to be what I wanted to make, that's a beautiful thing. That's helped me be more me. Rather than defining myself as who I wasn't, now I can kind of define myself as who I am. And it's taken me a long time to get there. Really, the journey did not kick into full swing until probably when I was 48 or 49, maybe even as late as 50. But can you imagine being raised to not be afraid of your parents? And a child's never going to know what a gift that is. They're never going to understand that because they don't have to. Because they don't have the bad thing to compare it to. They're not living through the time when their parents did hit them and the parents stopped hitting them. They're just in an environment where they never got hit. And that is both a joyous and a painful thought. Because I, and far too many people I know, and many more in the world that I don't, never had that chance. But I'm willing to fight tooth and nail for even one kid to be raised in a world where they don't have to fear their parents, where they never know what it's like to be afraid of their parents. Fear is more than just a mind killer. Fear can cripple you for your entire life. It can take you decades to pull that apart piece by piece and wrench it out of your skull and throw it away. And then to look at the pieces and then start putting them into something that is you. I don't know if anyone who's listening to this is ever going to have kids or does have kids. But I want you to entertain that thought. I want you to imagine raising your child without violence. I want you to imagine your child never being afraid of you. And if that doesn't bring you joy, you have my deepest and most sincere pity. And if you knew me, you'd know what an insult that is.